Hello everybody. I think we'll begin because it's just on time and we have a lot to listen to. So thank you very much for coming to the Isobar Press, the year at Isobar, this year at Isobar. This is, I'll introduce the poets first and then we'll do 3 readings. This was the catalogue of Isobar Press 2 years ago, and there are more since then, 3 of which we'll be seeing today. So, wait a minute, how do I, it's not moving.
Try this out. No, that's not working.
Okay.
Try it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, so this year at Isobar is the title. And there are 3 new books this year. My Brother Goes Down to the Sea by John Gribble, and Luna, well, first of all, and Mountain Retreats by Iain Maloney. And I'll introduce both of those in just a second. And the third one is Luna. And Jane can't be here, unfortunately, for reasons that will become clear during the reading. Her book, Luna, is very much about her illness. She's had a very, very serious cancer encounter with cancer. Well, 2 very serious encounters with cancer, and the second one is major. And she has mobility problems as a result, and she just couldn't get here. So she sends her very sincere apologies. She wished she could be here, but she asked if I and Eric Selland could read for her, and was very pleased when we said yes. She was delighted because she wanted her work to be presented here. So Eric and I will be reading for her, which is a little bit strange because the writing is very much written from a woman's point of view, and we've got 2 blokes reading it. On the other hand, the writing is so strong, her language is so powerful, that we're doing it to honour and respect her courage and her writing skill, rather than for any other reason. And she was absolutely delighted that we were willing to do it, because she thought she just had to give up her book being launched. So Eric and I will do that, and I'll introduce her work in a minute. I'm going to introduce people in reverse order. So Iain first. Wait a minute. Let me get it right. Iain Maloney teaches in Nagoya, and is a very prolific author, novels, memoirs, non-fiction, and poetry. And this Mountain Retreats is your 3rd poetry book? 2nd? 3rd poetry book. Yeah, and the first Isobar book. And his 2 most recent books, I think I'm right in saying, are these 2, perhaps the most best-known books, The Only Gaijin in the Village, and The Japan Lights, which is about a Scots guy who came here and designed all the Japanese lighthouses. Difficult man and interesting man. And Iain has been all around Japan visiting these lighthouses. And this is his book, Mountain Retreats. Okay. It's working now. Jane, this is Jane, who can't be here today. As I say, she sends her apologies. She's also a very prolific author. She published about 8 or 9 books before 2015 in poetry. There are 4 of them on the left, with various presses. Those ones are Avant Books, Printed Matter Press, Blazevox, and Think Books on that page. But she's also published for Autoliths and other small press publishers. And the book on the right is Women, Poetry, Migration, which is about women who have moved out of their own cultures to live abroad in a different culture, as she has. She's from the US, from Michigan, I think, Illinois, is it? Yeah, she's, her degrees are from Chicago. Is she from Chicago? Anyway, yeah, up there. And she has lived here for many years, and is married to a Japanese doctor. But people from all over the world, women who have moved out of their own cultures, are interviewed and write, including It's a very strong book. She has 3 Isobar books. Poems New and Selected is a selection from the first 10 books. Then in 2015 she had her first bout with cancer and very, very severe treatment, and much of that appears in Plan B audio, which I think is a real good title for somebody who has their life knocked off course by an illness. And it was really quite serious, and it's a very good book, very strong, got terrific reviews from Pam Brown in Australia, Frances Presley in Britain, major women poets in the innovative tradition. Then in 2018 she was further diagnosed, and she underwent a major operation. In fact, I didn't know such a major operation could be done. It was a very, very severe intervention, and I didn't know one could survive it. And this book, Luna, comes out of that. However, it's not documentary or confessional. You'll hear some of it in a minute. Okay, and you know him. We owe him a great vote of thanks. Jane actually arranged the very first Japan Writers' Conference, and then John took over from the second, and has done it all the way through until last year. So this is the first year that he has no role at all, other than to be here and promote his own books.
Not entirely true.
Okay. Pay attention. These are his books from his Another Wrong for Dora is his big book, and his translations of the 100 Poems by 100 Poets. And this is the book that he will be reading from. I think I'm right in saying that if you buy a copy of My Brother Goes Down to the Sea from the table upstairs and you show it to him, he will give you a book, one of his other books of your choice, for free. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so take advantage of that. You get 2 for the price of 1. Okay, John Gribble. There's a picture.
There's a picture, okay. I'd rather not use a microphone if you
voice
can't.
is a bit faint without. If you can keep the volume up in your spoken voice, which most speakers in a session can't. They start out well, but after 2.5 minutes their voice drops down to...
Well, my reading's short. Let's see if I can do it.
What was
And
that?
I say my reading is short.
Oh.
So let's see if I can do it without the thing. However, I think I've got laryngitis coming on too, so.
You better use the mic.
Well, we'll see. Let me try it this way. I don't have 3 hands, is the problem. And I've got to hang on to the book. Thanks, Paul, for the nice introduction. And I'm going to read a selection from this beautiful book that he brought out. And this is the very first poem in the book. Paul thought we ought to stick this in the front because it does touch on most of the themes in the book. It's called The Niagara River Above Horseshoe Falls. The water makes its stately way, some small ripple, but mostly smooth, swift, and calm, until it isn't. A faint unrest, a slightly dis-ease, a tugging forward, a hump, a buck, small surges, disorders quelled, tried again. Elasticity failing, the one becomes the many, the millions. Our roar becomes a presence. 1,000 years of order will come undone beneath the mists ahead. All right, and your copy will not come with the red tags. Sorry. Okay, and this is the title poem to the book. My brother goes down to the sea. The soft woven basket full of rose petals and ash is festive as a picnic. Hung from ropes, it sways beside the boat as it's lowered. The swinging stops when the basket touches the water. It sinks a few more inches as the ropes are shaken loose. First, the blooms float free. They drift north, away from the boat. Following the flowers, the ash forms a long gray ghost in the dark blue sea, a figure even leaner than he had been in life. The streak of water grows faint and fades. The rows continue north. With no restraints, the basket follows, but soon begins a westward drift. And okay, the next poem, I hope to address a problem I see with a lot of poetry readings. You have to sit, and you have to keep your eyes open and look attentive, and but there's no room for participation. And so this is a participatory poem. Your part is the phrase, Wan Li vase. Wan Li vase. You got that?
No, what is it?
Wan Li vase. Don't worry about what it is. The explanation will be coming. Wan Li vase. Everybody.
Wan Li vase.
Lovely. Perfect. Okay. This is a ghazal, which is a Middle Eastern form of couplets. And the first couplet has this refrain line at the end of both lines. And then it repeats on the second line of each couplet following. The big trip with a ghazal is the stanzas should not connect in any way other than with the refrain line. And that's a trick. There's no continuity to this poem, I hope. Okay, and here's the definition of Wan Li. Wan Li is the formal name of the Emperor of China in his reign from 1572 to 1620. During this period, the export of porcelain to Europe began. Okay, now I will signal you with a nod when you're to come in with your part. She views the shards and her heart-shaped face like a wonderful. In wealthy homes, both a real peace and a still life with a thieves divide the silver and coin. No one wants the months of illness, weeks of pain, yet her skin's as smooth as a among the clutter and all the trash, a cracked glazed bowl, amid the clutter and all the trash. I'm sorry. Well, let's do that one again so I can get it right. Amid the clutter and all the trash, a cracked glazed bowl, a Spartan room, yet made complete with a single piece. The colors a mystery, gray, green, light shifts slowly on the The old man's gift confuses the girl, a beautifully wrapped recovered after centuries, now for sale. Various examples of the party got noisy, then wine foul. On the sideboard, aloof, the he's over the rail in a 5-floor plunge. His last thoughts of a all of a sudden, too much cash. Hey, that's a beauty, that after 60 years of holding blooms, it's packed away. The a few more minutes, then closing time. One last look at the The rain is remembered as mostly corrupt. Still out of it came this hundreds of years held in his hand. John's casual but careful with a okay, thank you. Give yourselves a hand. Okay, I've done that one.
So John, is that last syllable, is that what we, with a British and Australian English, would pronounce vase?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one would be vase.
That's right. Face.
Somebody's moved my red markers here. where? Okay, here it is. As you know, there's an election coming up in my country. How could you not know it? And this poem I wrote some years ago when asked this by a number of people, but it seems appropriate to resuscitate. So when you're moving back to America, when Walt Whitman's on the $10 bill and Emily Dickinson's on the 5, when Mark Twain's on the 20, Melville the 50, Scott Joplin the C note, and Fats Waller's on the dime. Okay, and gonna close with something based on an experience I had 31 years ago when I first moved to Japan. It's called Done from Love. So I'm standing in the barber shop waiting for a chair when a navel-high urchin, still unshorn, comes up, looks me full in the face, and yells, "Gaijin!" Foreigner. "Gaijin! Gaijin!" He kicks my left shin 3 times, then twice more to finish the job. He dances 1.5 meters away to watch for my reaction. "Yeah," I tell him, shaking a finger. He needs to know this is unacceptable. His eyes sparkle. "Gaijin!" And I know it's no use. I take his right elbow and left ankle, lift him high, and eat him. Thanks so much.
Yum. Okay, something else. Okay. All right, we'll move now to Jane, who I've already introduced to you in essence. What's going to happen is that Eric Selland is going to speak a little bit about Jane and her work. He wrote a marvelous introduction to the new and selected poems, where he explores her poetry and the method she uses and her style very well. So I think it's a great essay to read if you like Jane's work. He's going to speak about her literary review poems from the new book. And then I'll read about 5 minutes, well actually exactly 5 minutes worth of poems, including the final one, which I think will make clear in very explicit fashion what she's been going through without any kind of self-pity or sentimentality or anything really that's bad. It's an amazing piece of writing. So I'll be finishing with that. And I've already introduced Iain, so after my reading of Jane's last poem, Iain will just come in and do the last reading. And then I'll wrap the session up at the end. Okay, so Eric Selland is, I published, 2 of his poetry books, and 3 of your translations, 2 of your translations so far. Yeah. Kusadama by Yoshioka Minoru and Kiwa Nomura's The Day Laid Bare. And next year there will be another one coming, which is the early works of Yoshioka Minoru. So I published several books by Eric, who's a very fine California poet, avant-garde, bilingual poet. He's going to, and he's known Jane for a long time. So he's going to speak about it and read some of her work first. And I'll put up that image, which is from the cover, while he does so. Eric.
Thank you. Yes. Just a few words. Paul already mentioned a few things about Jane and her work. In my, just to paraphrase, or summarize what I've written about her before in her selected poems, Jane's approach to poetry is, the poem is, I describe as like a framework through which all the data of life flows. She has observations, allusions, both literary and to contemporary popular culture. And there's also the personal the personal comes through in this data as well. But she's not a confessional poet, so the personal comes through just as part of all of the other data that's coming through this framework of the poem. And in a way, everything's connected in this way, too. And that basic approach continues. There's a whole series of discrete observations or comments throughout the work. The difference in this newer book, Luna, is that she engages or expresses with the personal, especially her condition after her cancer surgery, much more directly. And yet, as Paul said, not with sentimentality or self-pity or anything of that sort, but it's just very direct, almost. Occasionally there's lines that, if you're really sensitive about this sort of thing, the physical reality is possibly even a little bit shocking, or embarrassing. But she doesn't hang on to these, images and dwell on them. She moves on to the next thing. And even in her own personal suffering, there's always, she brings in the various crises going on in the world. She brings in, the war in the Ukraine. She talks about Gaza, Palestine, a woman carrying a dead child, a photo she saw of something in Palestine, this sort of thing. So that personal suffering always connects to the suffering of the world. And yet she's not without humor. There's many humorous lines in the poem as well. But that is a big contrast of bringing that aspect of her personal experience so directly. There is more of it, and it's more direct, even more so than her last book was Plan B Audio, also covered a lot of that material, but this is even more direct and very matter-of-fact descriptions of her physical condition post-surgery. So I am going to read one little bit of this. I think Paul will read more. And this one does have mention of some of this. How many tears will fit into the shadowy underbrush? If I could kiss my stoma, I would. But bending forward is not my strong suit these days. There is a cold draft between my legs and a large lump of tissue where my anus and rectum used to be. This is a serenade to my post-cancer body in part. So I kiss the warm grass and roll in the sun carefully. Listen to the melody of winds and trees. An old woman living alone in the countryside. When asked if she believed in God, she replied she did, but that she spelled it differently. Nature. Nature. Do I have time for more? Do you want
Yes, that'd be good.
just very, and again, something a little bit lighter. I live inside the apostrophe. The day is wet and full of remorse. How much time the sky has wasted. Crying, I wonder if I can be a comma instead, endlessly enumerating each breath. So on to Paul, we'll read some more.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ed. Yeah, you've already met the stoma. She has two of them. The bags for human waste. You'll be meeting them again in a moment. Okay, I'm going to read four pieces from this book. I dreamed I was Otani Shohei's interpreter. This dream is impossible, like all my dreams, such as my dream that I become a fish. My dream that if SM and BC heckle me at my next reading, I turn into a large Japanese brown bear. That I join a weaponless army. That everybody becomes vegan and forgoes pets. That I become more disabled so my mother loves me more. And I die sooner than later. That's all my news. Love, Mum.
Sorry.
It was the day the war began. I was supposed to meet my friend at a downtown cafe for tea. She was not inside the cafe, but waiting outside. However, she had turned into a large grey statue of a bird in the middle of the city square. When I spoke to her, she, unfortunately, did not respond. So after stroking the top of her head for a couple of minutes, I went for a walk around town, as it was being attacked by tanks, and I wanted to get a better look at the falling buildings and fires. Although many people were dying, and piles of body bags being thrown into ditches, it was as if an invisible though highly effective shield surrounded me, as not even a hair on my head was touched by anyone or anything. So, despite explosions everywhere, I was not injured. And so it was with my friend. Although other statues were toppled, not even a scratch on her. As I was pondering our good fortune, it started to rain quite heavily. Except that it was not rain exactly, or not what is normally thought of when one thinks of rain. To get to the point more quickly, let me say that I now also have become a statue, hidden in the basement of my friend's bombed-out apartment building. I see everything, but can't move. There is no food, but who feeds a statue? It's not so bad, as my mother, in a pool of blood at my feet, used to say. Things could be worse, so why complain? Eric mentioned the way in which, Ukraine and Palestine and actually Sudan also and other disasters appear in the poem. Is a very short piece in that area. Life in Gaza, 2 months old, 2 kilograms. Once alive, now a white sheet, twisted at the ends, like a piece of candy. My right leg is much larger than the left. In its white bandage, my body bent forward and to the right. No more catcalls, only blank stares, stares that burn a hole in you. But not in me. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in middle age. All of the symptoms were apparent since childhood. During cancer in 2015 and 2018, I prayed. First, to live. Then, not to cut my genitals. Then, not to cut too much. Then, not to take everything. Few wishes are granted in this life. You say, I'm a hero, an inspiration, the bravest person you know. I am none of these. Just an ordinary person who poops and pees like everybody else who has a colostomy and a urostomy into plastic bags that stink, itch and leak. Sometimes gas fills my colostomy bag so that it looks like a large balloon under my clothes that even my gargantuan tunics and flare skirts cannot hide. I'm tired of hiding the facts. I have no bladder, no anus, no rectum, no ovaries, no uterus, no fallopian tubes, no vagina, no vulva at all. The doctor stretched my skin and sewed me shut. I named my colostomy stoma my meat. I am a vegan. And my other stoma, plum drop. I thought of naming my scars, but thought better of it. Too busy, maybe. Am I now the plus in LGBTQAI+? If not also the B? Yet I was an A student. I can't scratch my itchy peristomal skin. I can't put back my clitoris. But I'm here to tell you, I just turned 60, and I'm alive, alive, alive.
One, the grammar of stone. To weather is to survive, to see out the storm, left infinitive, to stand, to breathe, to live. Yet weathering is to fall apart, slowly, breaking down, crack by crack, fissure by fissure, by fair rift or foul, the gerund forming illuvium, leaching from the world. 2. The temple of the coming winds. Footfall on moss cobbles. Oh, forgot that.
Yeah, okay.
Footfall on moss cobbles, past busts of Basho and Wakayama, winding pre-car roads, winter-closed cafes, school silent, the first of 1,000 stone steps, worn round, paced hollow, centuries of monks, nobles, pilgrims, hikers, through rough red gates where the spirit is physical and the ground esoteric, now us adding our tread, pilgrims of attrition. Numbered climbs, bells count steps, bird cry, river splash, frog chorus in the ruins of lost rooms and roofs, where prayer cured emperors, hostile warlords dictated death, and a shogun's mother used her sway to reverse ill fortune. Disaggregation bringing the mountain to its knees, pilgrims of high and low. One day, the mountain will come to us, pilgrims of subduction. 3. Frost. All it needs is a crack. I've done it again. 3. All it needs is a crack, a single crystal, one of us snowflakes in the right spot, the absolute day, the temperature just so, a wedge to grow over time, increasing volume, surpassing the tensile strength of granite, water that flows into cracks, flows out again, pressure exhaled, dissipates, tortuous fractures, torturous slow, ice and melt, ice and melt. In ideal conditions, frost weathering will gradually pry our worlds apart. 4. Heat death. Change happens slowly, then all at once. First creeps, then jerks. Unpolished, buttressed and stressed. Pressure pushing for release. Stone, in the right conditions, is sensitive to subtle shifts, the tug of sun and moon. Expansion in the high noon heat, incandescent, callid, wildfire fever. Then cold contraction, brumal, biting, boreal at heart. Fatigued introvert, alone beneath the stars, slowly coming apart. Thermal extrovert, shocked to breaking, cracked at the seams. If one doesn't get you, the other will. 5. The memory cycle. Thrust abyssal, subterranean, interred beneath shoal, stratus suppressed, buried forever. Nothing is forever. Intrusive as granite, surface erosion, unloading, unburden, sheeting, exfoliating the planet. Glaciers retreating, scars lingering, the underworld clear as day, exhumed, exposed, pressure released. All of this has happened before. 6. An old salt. It all starts with water. Water on comets, water on a Jovian moon, and the plop of Basho's frog. It all starts with water, trickling into cracks, capillary veins, lubricant through rocks, the dynamics of fluid. It all starts with water, saline drips and rehydration, heat relentless, haloclastic evaporation, 2 H's and an O, splitting. It all ends with salt. Lenses intensify, build and grow, pushing the world apart, the clarity of crystal. It ends with salt, a thin white line, a seasoned man with a salt and pepper beard. It ends with me. 7. Biological. At the Silver Temple, moss the interrupter, primary lichen, colonial green. Life thrives in the fissures, rooting expansion, seedling philosophy at the end of the road, where we drink bitter matcha. 8. End. Frost wedging, shock and fatigue, exfoliation, sheeting, salt, frost, water, heat, curious hyphae, the breaking of bonds, haloclasty, crystal lenses, seedling philosophy. All of this has happened before. It ends. It starts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I realised as soon as you started that I fell down on the job. I forgot to mention that the structure of mountain retreats, which is in 2 parts, there are 2 sequences, and you heard the second one. And the first part is about mountain climbing, and as a result of the diagnosis. So it's a way of the human reasserting itself by going into the mountains, and the mountains are experienced from a human point of view. And what you've just heard is the second part, which is much more from the point of view of the mountains, and where erosion and weathering and the cycles that break down of rock are a way of coming to terms with mortality. I should have said that at the beginning, that might have given a better context to read. But what we decided that Jane's last poem was so strong that it was probably better not to, for him just to read rather than have, a downtime of talking and me showing his books on the screen. So that's why I introduced him at the beginning. But anyway, I hope that maybe that retrospective name is useful. Sorry about that, Ian. Go on. Okay. We actually have 10 minutes. We can maybe have a little question and answer if you'd like to. But first of all, next year at Isobar, these are the plans for next year as far as they exist now. The one on the left is, I think you can probably see from the subtitle, rather close to my heart. 1969 to 2019. It's a collection of most of what I've written for 50 years, and it's taken a further 5 years to get it into shape and get everything just so. And I received the first printed proof yesterday. I was going to bring it, but actually the front cover is a bit misplaced. I'm going to have to redo that, so I didn't bring it. But I hope we'll be launching that here in Japan's Writers Conference next year. It's the 50th Isobar title, 50 years writing, and it's 500 pages. So, please buy a copy when it comes. that's going to be out, in the next couple of weeks. Then the next big project is Lindley Williams Hubbell, who's a very interesting man. He was a poet, he American poet from Connecticut, and he won the Yale Younger Poets Award in 1928, 28, either 27 or 28, I've forgotten. And his early style, he was in New York, and his early style was very much like those New York women poets, like Eleanor Brooke, and what's her name? Eleanor Brodie, and Edna St. Vincent Millay, that kind of rhyming, very aware kind of writing. And then he modernized during his 30s and 40s after a number of personal crises, and his masterpiece is this book, Long Island Triptych and Other Poems in 1947, which is absolutely extraordinary. He was a close friend of Gertrude Stein, and he took certain ideas from Stein, I think, of structuring the book. It doesn't sound anything like Stein, but it's in a way a cubist poem, Long Island Triptych, which is fascinating. So the selected poems will be about 200 pages. I've written a draft introduction, but I've got to finish that. And I'm probably going to publish just the triptych as a separate book, because I think it's so strong, without the other poems, many of which will be in the selected. So that will be coming. He came to Japan in 1953, at the age of 52. And he liked it so much he never left. He just came, and a year later, he went to immigration and said, "How do I become a citizen?" And they said, "Well, hang on, just a minute. You're supposed to be here a bit longer." And he said, "Well, how much longer?" They said, "Well, come back in 5 years." He came back in 5 years, and they gave him citizenship. He seemed to have had a charmed life. Things went bad for him in New York and Connecticut, but when he came to Japan, it seemed like he had a charmed life, and he just loved the place. He was a great Nogaku fan, and taught at Doshisha. Are you interested? Shall I go just a bit more? Yeah. He never finished high school. His mother asked him, "Are you learning anything at high school?" And he said, "No." He said, "Right, out." And he took him out, and she took him to the theatre in Connecticut and in New York. They used to go down New York, see Shakespeare, Ibsen, everything, and he became a complete theatre fan. And he read his mother's, he found his mother's collected Shakespeare at the age of 8. By the age of 10, he had memorized all the plays, which he never forgot. And when he was later lecturing on Shakespeare, he never had a text. It was all there. And when he got to Kyoto, he came to Kyoto. It's a long story about how he ended up in Kyoto. I won't do it now, I don't have time. But he was invited to dinner with the president of Doshisha. And they got on really well, and they had an open event in 1953. So to get a foreigner talking about Shakespeare was a real thing for outreach to society. So they said, "Would you do it?" He said, yeah, sure. So he gave a great talk on Shakespeare and was a real hit. And so the president said, "Fine, we'll offer you a job, and we'll offer you a full professorship." And he said, "But hang on. I haven't got a PhD. I haven't even got a high school diploma." And the president said, "Never mind. We'll give you an honorary doctorate. But first you have to write 2 monographs." So he wrote 2 monographs and he got a doctorate. And he taught until he retired at Doshisha. Apparently a brilliant teacher who really made literature live for his students. One of whom was Hiroaki Sato. The famous translator of all kinds of Japanese, one of the major translators of Japanese poetry, Hiroaki Sato, who will be writing the back cover of the selected. He was also the mentor of Yoko Danno, who I think many of you know, and he encouraged her to write in English. And she's just delighted this is happening. Okay, plus, the second Noon anthology of short poems will be coming sometime next year, I think. Edited by Philip Rowland. The first one's great, and the second one will be 2. Yoshioka Minoru collected early poems, translated by Eric Salland. Andrew Fitzsimons, what the Sky Rangers, the Suihitsu of Kenko, but it's expanded, including a long poem about drink, about which, alcoholic drink that is, which both Kengo and Andy have somewhat similar expertise. And I have others. Okay, thank you. We have 3 minutes. We just have time for maybe 2 questions, if you have any, or comments. Yeah, Eric.
I always love your covers, but the covers on your new book and the next one is selected poem, Lindley book. I'm curious where those images, paintings come from.
Okay.
I can almost guess the second one. But
This is by a Scottish artist called Wilhelmina Barnes-Graham, who was one of the St Ives School in the 1940s, 50s, 60s in St Ives in Cornwall, which was one of the 2 centres of abstract art in the 50s, the other being New York. And there's this little fishing village in Cornwall where Ben Nicholson, Barbara Hepworth, Peter Lanyon, Wilhelmina Barnes-Graham, Patrick Heron, Roger Hilton, and so on, Brian Winter, they were all clustered in this town doing abstract painting, very modernist painting. And this is a late work by Wilhelmina Barnes-Graham. Look her up on the internet, she's got some amazing images. And actually, that is an original which I own. So that's why I put it on the front. I bought it, but when I retired from university, I got a Taoiseach key. And so one of the things that I did, I went down to an art gallery in London and bought some pictures. That was one of them. The other one is Malevich. I've forgotten the title of it now. This is the original cover of the 1947 book, and this is Malevich. It was the only one I could find that might be licensable, which wasn't in St. Petersburg. I have no wish to get something from St. Petersburg. This is in Switzerland, so I haven't written to them yet, but I will be writing to them. I hope I can get that one. So this is only a draft cover. But Barnes-Graham is wonderful. Barnes-Graham. Okay, how are we doing? We've got 1 minute, 2 minutes, yeah. Anybody else, comments or questions? Okay, well let's go and get a cup of coffee. So thank you so much for coming. And all the books are upstairs, of course, on the table. And as we said earlier, that if you buy a copy of John's latest book and show it to him, he'll give you a free copy of one of